What is this?
This is your resignation.
You can't be serious.
I'm deadly serious. You shouldn't have seen this. He sent it.
What does it mean?
It means everything. I needed to do that.
I know. Thank you.
I had not spoken a single word in 7 years, but that night, my silence made the most feared man in Chicago take one step back. The chandelier above the ballroom looked like frozen lightning, all crystal and gold, spilling light over people who wore kindness like expensive perfume, strong at first, gone the second you got too close. I stood near the west wall of the Cross Foundation gala with a silver tray balanced on my palm and a stack of blank note cards tucked inside my apron. That was how I survived rooms like this. I smiled when I had to. I nodded when someone wanted service. And when they expected a voice from me, I gave them paper instead. Most people hated that. They did not know what to do with a woman who would not fill the silence for them. My manager, Denise, had already told me 3 times to look more approachable, as if my quietness was a stain on the uniform. I needed the money. $200 for 6 hours, plus tips if the guests remembered I was human. That was enough to cover Lily's heart medication for another week. So I kept my chin up, my shoes steady, and my mouth closed. I had learned a long time ago that words could fail you. Sometimes they arrived too late. Sometimes they got stuck in your throat while everything you loved disappeared in front of you. A man in a navy tuxedo snapped his fingers near my face. Champagne, sweetheart. Not sweetheart. Not to him. But I lifted a glass from the tray and offered it without blinking. His friends laughed when I did not answer. One of them leaned closer and said, "She deaf or just rude?" Heat crawled up my neck, but I did not lower my eyes. I reached into my apron, pulled out a card, and wrote in clean block letters, "Enjoy your evening." His smile thinned. People like him wanted embarrassment. They wanted me small. I had spent 7 years refusing to shrink. That was when the room changed. It happened before I saw him. The laughter softened first. Then the music seemed to slide into the walls. Conversations bent around the entrance like grass under wind. I looked toward the marble archway and saw Adrian Cross walk in with 3 men behind him, all dark suits, all quiet, all watching the room without appearing to move their eyes. Adrian did not rush. Men like him never did. He was tall, broad-shouldered, his black suit cut with the kind of precision that made every other man in the ballroom look unfinished. His hair was dark, his face pale under the warm lights, his blue eyes colder than the ice sculptures melting beside the dessert table. I knew his name because everyone in Chicago knew it. Adrian Cross owned restaurants, hotels, construction companies, charities, and the kind of fear nobody admitted out loud. He did not look at the donors first. He did not look at the politicians smiling too hard near the stage. He looked across the ballroom, past diamonds and champagne and velvet ropes, and somehow his eyes found me. I should have looked away. Every instinct in me said to become invisible again. Instead, I held his gaze. For 1 second, then 2. Something flickered across his face, too quick for anyone else to catch. Not anger, not interest. Recognition, maybe, or warning. My fingers tightened around the tray until the silver edge pressed into my skin. The thin bracelet on my wrist slipped from under my sleeve, catching the chandelier light. An old silver chain. A tiny cross charm. The only thing I had left from the night my voice disappeared. Adrian's eyes dropped to it. His entire body went still. And for the first time since he entered the room, the man everyone feared looked afraid. The bracelet had always felt weightless until Adrian Cross looked at it. Suddenly, it burned against my wrist like a secret my skin had been carrying without permission. I pulled my sleeve down, too fast, too obvious, and the tray tilted in my hand. Champagne trembled in the glasses. Bubbles climbed the crystal walls like tiny panicked breaths. Across the ballroom, Adrian did not move, but the men beside him noticed his stillness. One of them leaned closer, murmured something near his ear, and Adrian lifted one hand. The man went silent. That was the first thing I understood about him. He did not need to raise his voice to command a room. He barely needed to breathe. Denise appeared at my side with her smile stretched tight enough to Crack. Clara, she whispered through her teeth, VIP table needs service. Do not make this strange. Strange. As if I had invited the most dangerous man in Chicago to stare at me like I was a ghost from a locked room. I nodded and crossed the marble floor, each step echoing under the string quartet, my black flats slipping slightly where someone had spilled wine. The VIP table sat beneath a wall of white roses, too perfect, too expensive, their petals glowing under candlelight. Adrian was not seated yet. His guests were 3 older men, 2 women in diamonds, and Victor Hale, the Cross family attorney, with silver hair, a smooth face, and eyes that never rested anywhere for long. He watched me approach with the polite emptiness of a man who had already decided I did not matter. I began placing fresh glasses along the table. My hands were steady because they had to be. Lily used to say I could carry a full cup through a thunderstorm and never spill a drop. Thinking of her made my chest ache. She was 12 miles away at St. Agnes Hospital, probably pretending to sleep so the nurses would not fuss over her. I pictured her small hand curled around the stuffed rabbit I had washed so many times its fur had gone flat. I needed this shift. I needed the tip money. I needed to leave before midnight and catch the last train north. Then a voice behind me said, Miss Whitman. I froze. Adrian knew my name. Not Clara. Not server. Not sweetheart. Miss Whitman. The room did not stop this time. It narrowed. Sound thinned until all I heard was the soft crackle of candle flames and my own heartbeat. I turned slowly. He stood less than 6 feet away, close enough for me to see the pale scar near his left eyebrow, close enough to notice that his eyes were not just blue. They were winter blue, the color of Lake Michigan when the sky forgot the sun. He looked at my covered wrist, then at my face. Where did you get that bracelet? He asked. His voice was low, controlled, almost gentle, which somehow made it worse. I reached for a note card. My fingers brushed the paper, but Victor spoke before I could write. Mr. Cross, the scholarship announcement is in 5 minutes. We should not delay the program for staff. Staff. The word landed clean and cold. Adrian did not look away from me. I wrote 4 words on the card and held it up. I do not know. His expression changed so slightly that anyone else would have missed it, but I was trained by silence. I knew every language a face could speak. Pain crossed him first, then disbelief, then something harder, built to cover both. Victor laughed softly. Poor thing. Perhaps she found it at a thrift store. My eyes moved to him. Not down, not away, directly to him. His smile faded. For a second, I saw it. Not fear. Irritation. The kind people showed when an object refused to stay where they had placed it. Adrian noticed that too. His gaze sharpened between us. Before he could speak again, a man from the donor table bumped my elbow on purpose. The tray slipped. One glass fell, struck the floor, and shattered into bright pieces at my feet. Gasps lifted around me, delicate and useless. Denise rushed forward, horrified. I knelt to clean the glass, but Adrian stepped in front of me and said, Nobody moves. The ballroom obeyed. I stayed on my knees, my pulse loud in my ears, staring at the broken crystal scattered like ice across the marble. Then I saw it near Victor Hale's polished shoe. A small black envelope, half hidden under the tablecloth, marked with the same silver cross as the charm on my wrist. I saw the envelope before anyone else did, because everyone else was watching Adrian Cross. That was what power did to a room. It trained every eye toward the man with the coldest voice, while the smallest truths hid near the floor. The black paper lay half under Victor Hale's shoe, its silver cross catching the chandelier light for one sharp second before he shifted his foot. Too late. I had already seen it. My hand closed around a broken piece of crystal, not hard enough to cut, just enough to remind myself that I was awake. Adrian stood over me like a wall in a tailored black suit, his back to the room, his attention moving between my face and Victor's polished shoes. He had noticed my stillness. Of course he had. Men like him survived by noticing what other people tried to bury. Miss Whitman, he said. Quietly, stand up. Denise made a small sound behind me, half protest, half panic. I ignored her. I rose slowly, keeping my eyes on the floor until Victor stepped back from the envelope and smiled with practiced patience. Mr. Cross, he said, we have donors waiting, cameras ready, and a hospital wing to dedicate in your family's name. Surely this can be handled by management. Adrian did not answer him. He held out his hand to me, palm up. Not touching, not grabbing, just offering space. The gesture confused me more than an order would have. I did not take his hand. Instead, I reached into my apron, pulled out a note card, and wrote with fingers that refused to shake. Under the table, black envelope. Victor's expression did not change, but his eyes did. They went flat, empty, like a door closing without sound. I handed the card to Adrian. He read it once. Then his gaze dropped to the place I had indicated. For one breath, nothing happened. The violinist kept playing. A woman near the stage laughed too loudly. Ice clinked in a glass. Then Adrian bent, picked up the envelope, and the music seemed to lose its place. Victor stepped forward. "That is mine," he said, a little too quickly. Adrian looked at him then, fully, the kind of look that made grown men remember every secret they had ever kept. "Yours?" Adrian asked. Victor recovered with a thin smile. "Legal documents. Nothing appropriate for a charity floor." Adrian turned the envelope over. The silver cross on the seal matched the charm on my wrist exactly. Not similar. Not close. Exact. My stomach tightened. For 7 years, I had told myself the bracelet was just something a stranger had pressed into my hand on the worst night of my life. A keepsake. A mystery. A reason to remember that someone had once tried to help me. But Adrian stared at that seal like it had opened a grave beneath the ballroom. "Where did you get this?" he asked Victor. The attorney gave a soft, offended laugh. "From your office, naturally. You asked me to review donor transfer paperwork." Adrian broke the seal with his thumb. I should have looked away. I did not. Inside were 3 folded pages and a small hospital photograph clipped to the corner. I saw it only for a second, but a second was enough. Lily's face. My sister's face. Her hospital bed. Her tired smile. Her name typed beneath it. The room tilted. Air vanished from my lungs. I reached for the edge of the table to steady myself. Adrian saw the photograph at the same time. His eyes lifted to mine, and all the coldness left them so fast it almost frightened me. Not softness. Something sharper. Understanding. Victor Hale had not just been carrying Cross family documents. He had been carrying my sister's life like a bargaining chip. My pencil slipped from my hand and rolled across the marble. Nobody moved to pick it up. I forced myself to breathe, then took another card from my apron. The paper blurred, but I wrote anyway. "Why is my sister in that envelope?" Adrian read the question. His jaw tightened. Victor said my name then, softly, like he owned it. "Clara, this is a misunderstanding." That was his mistake. He spoke to me as if I could still be guided by fear. I turned the card around for the whole table to see. Then I wrote one more sentence beneath it, slower, darker, each letter carved out of 7 years of silence. "He is lying to you." The sentence sat between us like a lit match in a room full of silk. "He is lying to you." I had written dangerous things before. Medical instructions for Lily when nurses moved too fast. Rent extensions to landlords who never read them twice. "Please help me on a napkin the night our apartment lost heat in January." But those 5 words felt different. They did not beg. They accused. Victor Hale looked at the card, then at me, and for the first time his perfect calm slipped. Not enough for the donors to notice. Enough for Adrian. His eyes narrowed. The ballroom had begun to understand that something was wrong, though not what. People shifted in their chairs. A senator near the stage whispered to his wife. Denise stood frozen with both hands pressed to her mouth. Adrian folded the papers back into the envelope with terrible care. No shouting. No threats. Just silence, so controlled it felt heavier than sound. "Victor," he said, "why is a child from St. Agnes Hospital in my private donor file?" Victor smiled again, but it was thinner now, stretched over nerves. "Because the Cross Foundation covers pediatric care. You know that. We review dozens of cases." "Not like this," Adrian said. His voice dropped lower. "Not with surveillance photos." Surveillance. The word moved through me cold and slow. I looked at the photograph again, at Lily sitting in her hospital bed with her rabbit tucked under one arm, unaware someone had been close enough to capture her through a doorway. My vision sharpened in a strange way. The roses on the wall became too white. The candles too bright. The air too sweet with perfume and money. I wanted to run to St. Agnes. I wanted to tear the envelope from Adrian's hand. I wanted to speak so badly that pain bloomed in my throat, raw and useless. Nothing came out. Nothing ever did. So I wrote, "I need my phone." Adrian read the card and nodded once to the man standing behind him. The man stepped toward Denise, who fumbled through a service tray and found my small cracked phone where staff had been ordered to leave personal items. He brought it to me without touching my hand. I unlocked it with trembling fingers. 7 missed calls from St. Agnes. 1 voicemail. My knees almost gave. Adrian saw the screen. "Call them," he said. I shook my head and opened the voicemail instead, pressing the speaker with a thumb that felt numb. A nurse's voice filled the space between us, professional but strained. "Clara, this is Marlene from St. Agnes. Lily is stable, but there was an incident with a visitor asking questions about you. Security handled it. Please call us as soon as possible." The message ended. The ballroom was silent now. Completely silent. No music. No glasses. No polite coughs. Even the rich knew when fear had entered dressed as charity. Victor exhaled softly, almost bored. A hospital mix-up. These things happen. Adrian turned toward him. In that moment, I saw why people feared Adrian Cross. It was not because he looked cruel. He did not. He looked certain, like a door closing on every excuse in the world. "Who sent the visitor?" he asked. Victor spread his hands. "How would I know?" "Because," Adrian said, "you knew her name before I did." I stopped breathing. So did Victor. The memory flashed back bright and immediate. "Clara, this is a misunderstanding. He had said my name before anyone introduced me. Before Adrian used it. Before Denise called it out. Adrian had caught it. I had caught it too late." I turned my card over and wrote one more line. "He has been watching us." Adrian read it, and something in his face shifted from suspicion into truth. Victor's smile disappeared. For the first time, he looked at me not like staff, not like an inconvenience, but like a locked door he had failed to keep shut. Adrian stepped closer to me, but still did not touch me. "Miss Whitman," he said, "my car is outside. I will get you to your sister." I looked at him, then at the envelope, then at Victor. Slowly, I wrote the only answer I could give. "I go with you, but I do not belong to you." Adrian read it. The corner of his mouth moved, not quite a smile. "No," he said, "you do not." And somehow, that frightened Victor more than any command could have. Adrian Cross did not clear a path through the ballroom. The path cleared itself. People stepped back before he reached them, their champagne glasses held close to their chests, their mouths half open around questions they were too careful to ask. I followed 2 steps behind him with my phone in one hand and the black envelope in the other, because I had refused to let it out of my sight. Victor Hale remained near the VIP table, surrounded by donors who suddenly remembered urgent conversations elsewhere. He did not try to stop us. That made me more afraid than if he had. Men who chased you were easy to understand. Men who watched you leave with a calm face had already planned the next room. The service hallway behind the ballroom smelled like lemon polish, steam, and wilted roses. The music returned behind us, muffled by the doors, pretending the night had not cracked open. My shoes made small sounds against the tile. Adrian slowed his pace without looking back, matching mine as if he had noticed the way my breath had begun to catch. I hated that he noticed. I hated more that I needed him to. His man pressed the elevator button. The doors opened immediately, polished steel reflecting the 4 of us in pieces. Adrian, tall and still. His 2 men, quiet as shadows. Me, in a black server uniform with a wine stain near my cuff and an old silver bracelet half hidden under my sleeve. The elevator began descending. No one spoke. I stared at the glowing numbers above the door. 32, 31, 30. Each floor felt like another second Lily spent without me. My phone vibrated again. Unknown number. I looked at Adrian. He looked at the screen, then at me. "Your choice," he said. "Not an order. Not permission. Just choice." That single word unsettled me more than all his power. I answered and put the call on speaker. For a moment, there was only static. Then a voice I did not know said, "Tell Miss Whitman to stop writing things that do not concern her." My fingers went cold. Adrian did not move. The voice continued, calm and almost cheerful. "St. Agnes is a very busy hospital. Doors open. People leave. Mistakes happen." The call ended before I could breathe. The elevator doors opened to the underground garage, and the air changed. Cold concrete. Gasoline. Rainwater dragged in from tires. A black sedan waited 20 feet away, shining under fluorescent lights. I should have run to it. Instead, I stopped. Adrian turned. "Miss Whitman?" I pulled out a card so quickly the corner bent. My hand shook as I wrote. "If I go with you, she becomes leverage. If I do not, She becomes punishment. He read it. Something passed over his face. Not surprise, not pity. Respect, maybe. The kind people give a problem they cannot solve by force. You are right, he said. Then do not go with me. I blinked. He took out his phone and gave one quiet instruction to someone on the other end. Move the child to the East Wing under Dr. Marlene Hayes. No uniforms. No panic. Her sister must see her first. He ended the call and looked back at me. I am not taking you away from your sister. I am taking you to her. There is a difference. I wanted to believe him. That was the dangerous part. I had spent 7 years trusting silence because people filled words with whatever they wanted to hide. But Adrian Cross stood in front of me with the black envelope between us and the bracelet from my past catching the light. And for the first time that night, he looked less like a man giving orders and more like a man trying to pay a debt he had never named. I wrote one question. Why does my bracelet scare you? His eyes dropped to the silver cross on my wrist. The garage lights hummed above us. Rain tapped somewhere beyond the exit ramp. When he answered, his voice was barely more than a breath. Because my brother was wearing it the night he died. The words did not land all at once. They moved through me slowly, like cold water finding every crack in a locked room. His brother. The bracelet. The night he died. 7 years of silence pressed against the back of my throat until I thought I might break from the weight of it. Adrian stood beneath the fluorescent garage lights with his face carved into stillness, but his eyes had changed. They were no longer winter. They were something beneath the ice, something dark and moving, something that had never been allowed to rise. I looked down at the silver cross on my wrist. The charm was scratched along one edge. I knew that scratch. I had rubbed my thumb over it in hospital rooms, bus stations, grocery lines, all the small, lonely places where grief followed me without a name. I had been 17 the night I got it. A rainy night. A back road outside Evanston. Headlights in the trees. A young man with gentle eyes telling me to stay awake, telling me help was coming, pressing the bracelet into my palm because I would not stop shaking. I had not remembered his face clearly in years. Trauma had taken pieces and locked them behind fog. But now, standing in front of Adrian Cross, I remembered his voice. Soft, urgent, kind. My hand moved before I could stop it. I took a note card and wrote. He helped me. Adrian read it. The muscles in his jaw tightened, but he said nothing. I wrote again. I did not know his name. His gaze lifted to mine. Nathan, he said. His name was Nathan Cross. The name opened something inside me. Not a door. A wound with light behind it. Nathan. I saw rain sliding down a windshield. I saw my own hands shaking against a dashboard. I saw a young man. Kneeling outside a damaged car, his white shirt soaked through, his voice steady even while sirens echoed far away. You are going to be okay, he had told me. Take this. Hold on to it. Focus on this, not the fear. I had held on. I had held on so tightly that when I woke up in the hospital, the bracelet was still wrapped around my fingers and my voice was gone. I wrote. He told me to hold on. Adrian closed his eyes for 1 second. Only one. But in that second, the feared man of Chicago looked less like a king and more like a brother who had never been allowed to mourn. One of his men cleared his throat softly near the sedan, careful, respectful. Sir, St. Agnes confirmed the transfer. East Wing is secure. Adrian opened his eyes. The mask returned, but not completely. A crack remained, and I had seen through it. We need to go, he said. I nodded, but before I moved, I wrote one more question. Why was Victor carrying Lily's photograph? Adrian looked toward the garage exit, where rain shimmered beyond the concrete ramp. Because Victor was not just threatening you, he said. He was trying to control what I would do once I recognized that bracelet. My stomach turned. The black envelope felt heavier in my hand. I understood then. I was not an accident to Victor. Lily was not a random name in a file. The gala, the envelope, the photograph, all of it had been arranged like pieces on a board. Maybe Victor had known I would be there. Maybe he had known Adrian would see the bracelet. Maybe my silence had never protected me at all. I wrote, he wanted you afraid. Adrian looked at me for a long moment. Then he did something no one in that ballroom had done. He listened to what I had not said. No, he answered quietly. He wanted me angry. Afraid men hesitate. Angry men make mistakes. The truth of that settled between us. I opened the car door myself before anyone could do it for me. Adrian noticed. He almost smiled, but the sadness in his eyes stopped it. I slid into the back seat, clutching my phone, the envelope, and the memory of Nathan Cross telling me to hold on. Adrian sat across from me, not beside me, giving me space, giving me choice. As the sedan pulled out into the Chicago rain, my phone lit up again with a message from an unknown number. This time there was no threat. Only 6 words that made Adrian go completely still when I showed him the screen. Nathan did not die by accident. For a few seconds, the only sound inside the sedan was the rain tapping against the windows and the steady sweep of the wipers cutting the city into pieces. Nathan did not die by accident. 6 words. No signature. No explanation. Just a sentence sharp enough to split 7 years open. Adrian took my phone from my hand only after I nodded. His fingers barely touched the edges, as if he understood that even a small wrong movement could make me pull away. He read the message once. Then again, the blue light from the screen carved shadows under his eyes. I expected anger. I expected commands, phone calls, the cold machinery of power waking up around him. Instead, he became quiet in a way that frightened me more. Not empty quiet, loaded quiet. The kind of silence before glass breaks. Who has this number? He asked. I took the phone back and typed into my notes app. Nurses. Lily's school. My landlord. Denise from catering. No one else. Adrian read it, then looked at the man in the front passenger seat. Marcus traced the message without touching her phone longer than necessary. Marcus turned slightly. Yes, sir. I held the phone tighter. Adrian noticed. He lifted one hand, stopping Marcus before he reached back. Miss Whitman decides, he said. Not me. The words moved through the car softer than the rain. I did not trust him. Not fully. Maybe not even halfway. But I trusted the fact that he had corrected himself before taking control. That mattered. In my world, small mercies were never small. I handed Marcus the phone. He connected a slim device with careful hands, then returned it in less than a minute. While he worked, the sedan turned onto Lakeshore Drive. Chicago stretched beside us in wet gold and black, towers rising into low clouds, the lake invisible beyond the darkness, but somehow present, vast and cold. I watched Adrian watch the city. Everyone said he owned parts of it. Hotels, restaurants, blocks of silence. But grief owned him. I could see that now. It sat beside him like another passenger. My phone buzzed again. Marcus looked back from his screen. The number is masked, sir. Routed through 3 states. But the sender attached a file. Adrian's eyes shifted to me. May I? I opened it myself. A photograph filled the screen. Old. Grainy. A roadside under rain. Headlights blurred. A young man standing beside a damaged guardrail, one hand raised towards someone outside the frame. Nathan. Younger than Adrian. Softer around the eyes. Alive in a way memory had stolen from me. My breath caught so hard my chest hurt. Another image loaded beneath it. A hospital intake form from 7 years ago. My name. Clara Whitman. Age 17. Unresponsive. Severe shock. No verbal response. Adrian leaned forward, but stopped before coming too close. His voice changed when he spoke. You were there. I nodded. My throat tightened. The words were inside me, clawing upward, but the old wall held. So I typed. I remember Rain. I remember his bracelet. I remember him telling me not to look back. Adrian read the words and lowered his gaze. For a moment, he was not a Mafia boss, not a donor, not a name people whispered over white tablecloths. He was a brother reading the last kindness Nathan had given to a stranger. Then another message appeared. Ask Adrian what Victor told him that night. The air inside the sedan changed. Adrian's face went still in a different way. I looked at him, and this time I did not need a card to ask the question. He understood. 7 years ago, he said slowly, Victor told me Nathan had caused the crash by driving too fast in the rain. He said there were no witnesses who remembered anything useful. He said the girl from the scene had lost her voice and her memory. My fingers went numb around the phone. The girl. Me. I typed with shaking hands. He knew I was alive. Adrian closed his eyes, and when he opened them, the cold was gone. In its place was something worse. Shame. Yes, he said, and I never looked for you. That should have made him smaller. It should have made him easier to hate. Instead, the truth made the car feel unbearably human. I wrote one sentence and turned the screen toward him. You feared my silence because it kept the truth alive. Adrian stared at it for a long time. Then he whispered, No, Clara. I feared it because I buried my brother under someone else's story, and you were the first person who ever made me want to dig him out. St. Agnes appeared through the rain like a ship made of windows and fluorescent light. The sedan pulled beneath the emergency entrance, but Adrian did not open the door right away. He sat across from me with the black envelope on his knee and my silence between us, no longer using it as proof of weakness, no longer trying to fill it with his own voice. That changed something. Not enough to make me safe. Enough to make me listen. Marcus stepped out first, speaking softly into his phone as hospital staff moved near the automatic doors. No one ran. No one shouted. Whatever Adrian had ordered, he had made it happen without turning Lily into a scene. I stepped onto the curb with my note cards pressed to my chest. Rain touched my face, cool and clean after the perfume-heavy air of the gala. Adrian walked beside me, not ahead this time. The lobby smelled like antiseptic, coffee, and the tired hope of families who had been awake too long. I knew that smell better than home. Dr. Marlene Hayes met us near the elevator, her gray hair twisted into a loose bun, her eyes moving from me to Adrian with careful concern. "Clara, Lily is stable. She is scared, but she is safe." I almost folded in half from relief. Almost. Instead, I wrote, "Can I see her now?" Marlene nodded. "East Wing. Room 12. Adrian stayed one step back as we rode up. I could see him reflected in the elevator doors, hands still, shoulders controlled, grief locked behind discipline. But his eyes kept dropping to the bracelet. Nathan's bracelet. My bracelet. A bridge neither of us had asked for. Lily was sitting up when I entered, pale against the pillows, her stuffed rabbit tucked under her arm. Her face crumpled the second she saw me. "Clara." She reached for me, and I crossed the room so quickly my shoes squeaked against the floor. I held her carefully, mindful of the wires, the monitors, the fragile bird bones shape of her. Her hair smelled like hospital shampoo. Her hands clutched the back of my uniform. "I am okay," she whispered, though both of us knew she was saying it for me. I pressed my forehead to hers and breathed until the room stopped spinning. When I looked up, Adrian stood outside the doorway, not entering, as if he understood that some rooms had to invite you before you could belong in them. Lily noticed him. "Who is that?" I took a card and wrote, "Someone helping us." Lily studied him through the glass with the fearless honesty only children and dying people seem to have. "He looks sad," she said. Adrian heard her. I knew he did, because his face changed. Not much. Just enough. Dr. Hayes closed the door halfway and lowered her voice. "The visitor earlier used a false name, but he asked specific questions. Your work schedule, your sister's medication times, whether you still wore a silver bracelet." Adrian looked at me sharply. I wrote, "Victor." Marlene nodded once. Security pulled camera stills. "I have them." She handed Adrian a folder, but he did not open it. He handed it to me first. My choice again. My hands trembled as I opened it. The man in the hospital hallway was not Victor. He was younger, blonde, clean-cut, ordinary in the way dangerous people sometimes made themselves ordinary. But tucked beneath the image was a second page. A visitor authorization form signed by Victor Hale 7 years ago. Same hospital network. Same night as the crash. Beside my name were 4 words that made the air leave my body. "Do not question patient." Adrian read over my shoulder. His voice was quiet when he said, he silenced the witness before she understood she was one. My throat burned. Lily squeezed my hand. For 7 years, I had thought my silence was damage. Maybe it was also survival. I picked up my pencil and wrote one sentence on the back of Victor's old form. Then I held it up for Adrian to see. "I am done being hidden." He looked at me, then at Lily, then at Nathan's bracelet on my wrist. And for the first time, Adrian Cross lowered his head to someone with no power at all, as if my quiet had become the only law he still trusted. The decision changed the room more than any alarm could have. "I am done being hidden." For words on the back of a hospital form, written by a woman who had spent 7 years letting other people speak around her. Lily read them twice, then looked at me with tears shining in her tired eyes. "Good," she whispered. I smiled because if I tried to feel the whole thing, I would fall apart. Adrian did not move for a moment. He stood beside the half-open door with Victor's old authorization form in his hand, looking at my handwriting as if it weighed more than every contract he had ever signed. Then he looked at Dr. Hayes. "I need copies of every record connected to Clara Whitman from the night of Nathan Cross's crash. Official records, archived notes, visitor logs, anything removed, and anything amended." Dr. Hayes stiffened. That is protected medical information. Adrian nodded once. I am not asking you to give it to me. I am asking you to give it to her. Every eye turned to me. My fingers tightened around Lily's hand. The difference mattered. Adrian could have used power. He chose process. He chose my name on the request, my consent on the paper, my right to a history that had been locked away from me. Dr. Hayes softened. Clara, if you authorize it, I can start now. I wrote, I authorize it. Then below that, I added, I want the truth legally. Adrian read the second sentence, and something like approval crossed his face. Not pride. Respect. It steadied me more than I wanted it to. Marcus stepped into the hallway, listening to his earpiece. Sir, Victor has left the gala. His car is heading west on Randolph. Adrian's expression closed. Lily's hand tightened around mine. I felt her fear through her fingers. I picked up another card and wrote quickly, do not chase him because of me. Adrian looked back at me. I held his gaze and wrote beneath it, find the truth, not revenge. The words landed hard. I saw them hit him. Saw the old instincts rise behind his eyes. All the cold habits that had built the man the city feared. Then I saw him force them down. It was not gentle. It was not easy. But he did it. He turned to Marcus. No confrontation. Track only. Preserve evidence. Notify our attorney to prepare. For police cooperation. Marcus blinked once, surprised enough to forget his professional mask. Yes, sir. Adrian looked at me again, and in that look I understood something that frightened me more than his reputation. He was changing because I had asked him to. Not because I begged. Not because I belonged to him. Because I had shown him the line between justice and the darkness wearing justice's coat. Dr. Hayes returned with a tablet and forms for my signature. Since I could not speak, I signed where she pointed, my name appearing in black ink again and again. Clara Whitman. Clara Whitman. Clara Whitman. After years of being the quiet girl, the damaged girl, the sister at the hospital, my name looked almost unfamiliar when it stood up for itself. While she processed the records, I sat beside Lily and brushed a strand of hair from her forehead. Adrian stayed near the window, giving us space. Rain streaked the glass behind him. The city lights blurred through it, gold and blue and distant. Lily watched him for a long moment, then whispered, did someone hurt his heart too? My hand paused. Adrian heard her. His reflection in the window lowered its eyes. I wrote for Lily, yes. Then I looked at him and added on the same card. But hurt is not an excuse to become cruel. Adrian turned from the window. For a second, he looked as if he wanted to argue. Then he looked at Nathan's bracelet on my wrist and did not. Dr. Hayes came back 20 minutes later with a sealed folder and a face so pale it made my stomach drop. Clara, she said carefully, there is something you need to see. In your original intake file, there was a note from the responding paramedic. It was removed from the digital record 2 days later, but the paper scan survived. She handed me the page. My eyes found the handwritten line at the bottom. Patient repeated one phrase before losing verbal response. I could not breathe. The phrase was written in rushed blue ink, surrounded by old rain stains and hospital stamps. Victor pushed him. Victor pushed him. The words were small. Blue ink. A hurried note at the bottom of an old hospital page. But they hit the room with the force of a truth that had waited 7 years to breathe. My fingers went loose around the paper. Lily reached for it, but I pulled it gently against my chest before she could read more. She was 12. She had already carried too many adult fears in a child's body. Adrian stood so still near the window that for one terrible second I thought he had stopped breathing. His face did not twist. His voice did not rise. That was worse. His grief moved inward, disappearing behind his eyes, where no one could help him hold it. Dr. Hayes whispered, Clara, I am so sorry. Sorry. Such a soft word for something that had stolen my voice, his brother, and 7 years of truth. I stared at the phrase until the letters blurred. Victor pushed him, and then memory answered. Not all of it. Not cleanly. Trauma never returned like a movie. It came in pieces. Rain on my cheek. Tires hissing over wet pavement. Nathan Cross standing between me and another man's anger. Victor's silver hair darker than, plastered to his forehead by rain. His voice sharp, telling Nathan to get in the car, telling him to stop protecting some nobody girl who had seen too much. Nathan refusing. Nathan putting the bracelet in my hand. Nathan saying, hold on to this and do not let him take your name. My knees weakened. Adrian crossed the room, then stopped himself halfway. as if he had remembered that comfort could become another form of control if it was not invited. That restraint broke something in me. I held out the paper to him. He took it with both hands. Like evidence. Like a relic. Like the last words his brother had left behind through me. Marcus appeared in the doorway, his face tight. "Sir, Victor's vehicle is no longer moving." He entered the private terminal at Midway. Flight plan filed under a corporate shell company. Departure in 20 minutes. Adrian looked at the paper. Then at Lily. Then at me. I saw the old Adrian rise again. The man the ballroom had feared. The man who could make an entire city step back without raising his voice. But this time, he looked at my card before I even wrote it. Find the truth, not revenge. I had written it once, and somehow it had stayed in the room like a command. He turned to Marcus. Call federal authorities. Give them the flight information, the hospital record, the visitor logs, and Victor's connection to the Cross Foundation accounts. We do this in daylight. Marcus stared at him for half a second, then nodded. Yes, sir. Adrian's voice lowered. And Marcus, no one touches him. Not for me. Not for Nathan. The law gets him first. The room changed again. Dr. Hayes looked at Adrian as if she was seeing the outline of a different man under the old one. Lily's hand found mine beneath the blanket. I squeezed it gently. My throat burned so badly I had to close my eyes. There were words inside me. Not many. Just one name. Nathan. It pressed upward, painful and impossible, scraping against 7 years of silence. My lips parted. No sound came. Shame rushed in, hot and familiar. Adrian saw it and shook his head once. You do not owe anyone your voice, Clara, he said quietly. Not even the truth. I looked at him then. Really looked. The man who could buy buildings, silence rooms, move guards through hospitals, and still could not purchase the one thing he wanted most. A chance to hear his brother's story from the only person who had survived it. I picked up my pencil instead. My hand steadied as it touched the card. I wrote, I remember enough. Adrian read it, and the pain in his face softened into something almost sacred. Then I added, and I will testify in every way I can. Outside the window, Chicago glittered beneath the rain, still dark, still dangerous, but no longer endless. For the first time in 7 years, my silence did not feel like a prison. It felt like a door I was finally strong enough to open on my own terms. By morning, the hospital room had become a place where secrets came to be named. Dr. Hayes brought coffee in paper cups, too bitter and too hot, but I held mine anyway because the warmth gave my hands something to believe in. Lily had fallen asleep at last, curled on her side with her stuffed rabbit tucked beneath her chin, the monitor beside her keeping a soft, steady rhythm. Every beep reminded me that she was still here, that I was still here, that Victor Hale had not managed to turn either of us into a footnote. Adrian stood near the door, while 2 federal agents spoke with Marcus in the hallway. He had changed since the gala, though his suit was the same and his posture was still carved from control. The difference was in what he did not do. He did not interrupt the agents. He did not turn the hospital into his territory. He did not answer questions meant for me. When Agent Reynolds, a woman with tired eyes and a careful voice, stepped into the room and asked if I understood what giving a statement would mean, Adrian looked at me, not at her. My choice. Again, that quiet respect settled deeper than any promise. I wrote on a fresh card, I understand. Agent Reynolds sat beside my chair, not across from me like an interrogation. She placed a recorder on the table, then paused. You do not have to speak for this to count, Clara. Written testimony is testimony. Assisted communication is testimony. Memory is still memory, even when trauma changed the way it comes out. I blinked hard. No one had ever said it that way. For 7 years, people treated my silence like a locked file, useful only when it explained why I could not be asked more. Now a stranger with a badge was telling me the lock did not erase what was inside. I began with the rain. That was easiest. Rain on glass. Rain in my hair. Rain turning headlights into long white ribbons across the road. I wrote slowly at first, then faster. Nathan stopping to help me after my car slid near the shoulder. Nathan wrapping his jacket around my shoulders. Victor arriving angry. Victor telling him the girl saw the transfer papers. Victor ordering him to leave me. Nathan refusing. My pencil paused there. The room blurred. Adrian had turned away, one hand braced against the wall, his head lowered. I could have stopped. Everyone would have understood. But understanding had kept the truth buried too many years. I kept writing. Victor stepped toward Nathan. Nathan moved between us. I do not remember the exact impact. I remember Nathan falling against the guardrail. I remember Victor looking at me. I remember Nathan putting the bracelet in my hand and saying, "Hold on to this, and do not let him take your name." Agent Reynolds read the page with her lips pressed together. Then she asked, "Did Victor Hale know you were alive after that night?" I turned to the hospital authorization form. "Do not question patient." His signature sat at the bottom, clean and confident, as if stealing my voice from the record had been just another legal task. I wrote yes. Adrian made a sound then. Not loud, barely human. Lily stirred in her sleep, and he immediately went still, as if even his grief had learned to lower its voice around her. Agent Reynolds looked toward the hallway, then back at me. Victor Hale was detained at midway before boarding. No one was hurt. He is requesting counsel. The evidence you provided matters. Detained, not disappeared, not punished in the dark. Detained. The word felt almost unreal in Adrian's world. I looked at him. He met my eyes with something raw and unfinished. I wrote, "You kept your promise." He read it, and his face tightened with a pain that did not ask to be comforted. "Nathan deserved that promise 7 years ago," he said. "I should have been better then." I picked up another card. My hand did not shake this time. "Be better now." He stared at those 3 words for a long time. Then, slowly, Adrian Cross lowered himself into the chair across from me. Not as a king, not as a judge, not as the man the city feared, but as a brother finally willing to sit with the truth instead of ruling over it. 3 days later, I learned that truth did not arrive like thunder. It arrived in envelopes, signatures, quiet phone calls, and the exhausted faces of people who had spent years pretending not to see what was right in front of them. Victor Hale was no longer a shadow moving through the Cross Foundation. He was a name in federal custody, a name attached to financial records, altered hospital files, erased witness statements, and the kind of polished lies that had once passed for loyalty. The news called it a corruption scandal. They called Adrian Cross a controversial businessman cooperating with investigators. They called me an unnamed witness connected to a reopened case. No one called me broken. That mattered more than I expected. Lily was released from St. Agnes on a gray Friday afternoon, wrapped in a pink coat. Adrian had not bought because I told him not to. He listened. Instead, he arranged a private car service through the hospital social worker with my name on every form and no cameras outside. When the driver opened the door, Lily looked up at the black sedan, then at me, and whispered, "Is this what rich people use instead of buses?" I almost laughed. The sound did not come, but the feeling did, small and warm in my chest. Adrian stood near the curb with his hands in the pockets of his dark overcoat, giving us distance. Always distance now, never absence. That difference became harder to ignore. I helped Lily into the car, then turned back to him with a card already in my hand. "You do not have to keep doing this." He read it under the pale hospital light. Rain had stopped, but the street still shined like it remembered. "I know," he said. "Then why?" He looked past me for a moment, toward the hospital entrance, where families came and went carrying flowers, discharge papers, worry, relief. "Because Nathan helped someone when no one important was watching," he said. "And I spent 7 years becoming powerful enough to avoid feeling powerless." I thought that made me stronger. His eyes returned to mine. It made me late. The honesty settled between us without decoration. I did not know what to do with a man who could admit shame without asking me to soften it for him. I wrote, "Late is not the same as lost." His mouth tightened, and for a second I thought the words had hurt him. Maybe they had. Healing often did. He reached into his coat and pulled out a small velvet box. My body stiffened. He noticed immediately and did not step closer. "This is not a gift that buys anything," he said. "It is not an obligation. It is yours whether you take it from my hand or have Dr. Hayes hold it until you want it." I opened the box myself. Inside was a photograph. Old, folded, worn at the edges. Nathan Cross at maybe 22, smiling beside Lake Michigan, one hand lifted to block the sun. On his wrist was the bracelet I now wore. Behind the photo was a short note in Adrian's handwriting. "Thank you for holding on when my family failed to." My throat burned. Lily leaned from the car window and asked, "Is that the nice brother?" Adrian's face changed, softened in a way that made him look younger and older at the same time. "Yes," he said, "that is the nice brother." I held the photograph carefully, feeling the past shift from a wound into a witness. Then I removed the bracelet from my wrist. Adrian went still. I placed it in his palm, and before grief could close over his face, I wrote quickly, "Not forever. Just tonight. Let him come home." His fingers closed around the silver cross with the care of a man holding something alive. For the first time since I met him, Adrian Cross did not look feared, obeyed, or untouchable. He looked grateful, and somehow, that made him stronger than power ever had. That night, Adrian took Nathan's bracelet home, and for the first time in 7 years, the Cross mansion lit a candle without turning grief into ceremony. He told me later that he placed the silver cross beside an old photograph on the mantel, not in a vault, not behind locked glass, not where powerful families hide the things that make them human. Just there, in the open, where morning could find it. Lily and I returned to our apartment on the north side with 2 grocery bags, a stack of hospital instructions, and a silence that no longer felt like punishment. The place was small, the radiator clicked too loudly, and the kitchen window still stuck when the weather turned damp, but Lily fell asleep on the couch with her rabbit under her chin and sunlight from the street lamp across her face. I sat beside her until dawn, holding Nathan's photograph in both hands. Without the bracelet on my wrist, I expected to feel empty. I did not. I felt lighter, as if I had finally learned that memory did not have to be worn like a chain to remain true. The investigation moved slowly after that, but it moved. Victor's name appeared in court documents. Donors gave statements. Hospital staff admitted old pressure. The Cross Foundation was audited, restructured, and placed under public oversight because I wrote that it should be. Adrian did not argue. He signed the papers himself. Weeks later, he came to my apartment building without guards crowding. The sidewalk, without black cars blocking the street, without the city bending around him. He waited near the front steps in a dark coat while snow began to fall over Chicago, soft and careful, turning the cracked pavement white. Lily saw him first from the window and shouted, "Clara, the sad rich man is here." I gave her a look. She grinned and went back to her homework. When I stepped outside, Adrian held out the bracelet in an open palm. He did not close his fingers around it. He did not place it on my wrist. He waited. That was what changed everything. Not the money. Not the protection, not the power he had chosen not to use. The waiting, the respect, the space where my choice could stand. I took the bracelet and fastened it myself. Then I handed him a note card. Nathan came home. Now let him rest. Adrian read it, and the snow gathered in his dark hair as he looked down at the words. "I am trying," he said. I believed him, not because trying erased what he had been, but because he no longer confused fear with respect. He looked at me then. Really looked, and I no longer saw the man the ballroom had obeyed. I saw the brother who had learned too late, the king who had stepped down from his own shadow, the dangerous man who had discovered that the bravest thing he could do was be gentle when no one demanded it. My voice did not return that winter. Not all at once. Not like a miracle in a story people tell to make pain look pretty. But one morning, months later, Lily made pancakes too thick to flip, and a laugh broke out of me before I could stop it. Small, rusty, mine. She cried. I cried too. When Adrian heard about it, he sent no flowers, no diamonds, no grand message. Just one card, delivered by regular mail, with 3 words written in his careful hand. "I heard you." I kept that card beside Nathan's photograph, not because Adrian saved me, but because he listened when saving was not what I needed. The world had feared his power. He had feared my silence. In the end, neither one mattered as much as the truth we chose to carry without crushing each other beneath it.